All good. Welcome, everybody. This is Lisa from Worldwide Awake Business Network, and we have a special guest speaker this morning, the wonderful, energetic, amazing Carla from Gaia's Organic Gardens. And I've only met Carla a few months ago, and I don't know whether anyone can relate to this, but sometimes in life you meet people and you're like, oh my goodness, she was born for this. And the passion that she has for her business and how she has grown it, pardon the pun, but she basically planted a tiny seed and she has grown this huge thriving business. And not only has she done that, she's got 3 young children, and they're boys. Sorry if anyone takes offense, but boys often are very energetic. And there's a lot of work that goes into building a business, but then having 3 children. And if my memory serves me correctly, she's also got a FIFO husband. So I'm really excited to be introducing Carla very shortly. We are live streaming into the group. So please, if you're watching live, come in and comment. It'll help the algorithms. It'll help other people see what's actually happening with this live. We're also recording it. So you might be watching this down the track on our YouTube channel. So this is being recorded on Monday, the 2nd of October, but the information is absolutely timeless. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute myself so the camera goes on to the others, and I'm going to introduce Leanne Jones from Panacea Healing, and she's going to let everybody know what her business is and how she assists people. And then she is going to introduce Tanya, who's joined us this morning. She's going to do the same. And then I'll come back on and I will officially introduce Carla. So over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Lisa, and welcome, Carla. I am so excited to hear what you have to say today. My business is Panacea Healing. I am a Bowen therapist, cellular health consultant, and I work with a product called Acea Redox. I am based in Lesmurdy in a 2-bedroom granny flat next to my house where I live, so that I can keep an eye on my mum, who I've been caring for 13 years. On Thursdays, I also go to Ocean Reef, to Jackie Scott's house, and service northern suburb people with Bowen therapy. And now I'm going to introduce Tanya Skinner from the ICU Academy, and she is in Hammersley and online. So Tanya, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hi, my name is Tanya. I run ICU Academy Australia. I'm also an original site practitioner now. What this means is I run a program where I teach basically metaphysical program for children. So we teach them to purposely develop their intuition. The way that this can help children is at school and with any learning difficulties, things like this, gives them a real sense of self-confidence and self-belief. And I'm now qualified to teach adults as well under the original site. So I can teach adults to do this. Now, you might think a value for this I can give you is just the other day I wanted, where shall I go and buy my protein powder? And Clear and Anything dropped in the picture of my protein powder on discount at Woolworths, and I went there and there it was. And I think, wow, how useful is that as an adult to have that ability to receive messages in that way. So yes, I can work with children and with adults, and yeah, I'm the only person in Western Australia that does this. So yes.
Wow. That is amazing. It never ceases to amaze me how amazing, I know I'm using the word amazing a lot, the members and participants of Worldwide Awake Business Network group are. We're really, truly remarkable human beings. And I'm just so honoured to be connected to every one of you. And what I'd like to do now is to officially welcome Carla. So I'm just going to pop us on a gallery view for a moment. So Carla, if you just want to unmute, if we can just start, if I can just ask you a couple of questions, that would be amazing. First of all, how did you learn about our group? I'm trying to remember. Somebody invited you?
Yeah, that's right. So obviously just being part of the sort of main Awake community, and just sort of, yeah, found you through recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And then we met shortly afterwards, and I've actually been to your premises, and you showed us around, which was absolutely wonderful. How did, and I'm not sure whether your presentation actually covers this, but at what stage in your life did you realize that this was going to be the route that you were going to go down?
I was probably about oh gosh, what stage of my life? Well, it was before I had kids. It was just sort of coming out of my sort of adult, coming into myself as an adult, you know, sort of finding who I am. And I was working in marketing and stuff, and I had that sort of awakening where you kind of realize that you're not where you're meant to be in your life. And I dramatically kind of quit my job and went on a spiritual journey, and then found sort of where I'm meant to be in my true self. So yeah, then I started this, and at the time it was very very niche. People were like, oh, you know, drop the organic thing. This is, no one's going to pay money for doing things in this way. And I was quite true to my cause. And now obviously it's, we see the necessity in living our life like that. So yeah, just really seeing that need in the world for that at the point in time when the world wasn't quite ready, and just sort of pushing through that, and presenting still and staying strong to what I believed the world needed.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. So you were very, very true to yourself, and you followed your inner guidance, and you're now doing what you absolutely love, and you're serving others. And what we're concentrating on today is food security, because that's something that is of interest to a lot of the Awake community, and you're going to be giving us lots of tips. And I know Leanne was sharing with me prior to you actually jumping on, Carla, it sounded like 100, but it was probably 12 or 13 different vegetables that she's got to over the weekend and planted and created. And I truly believe that we plant seeds all the time with one another, and it often only just takes that little reminder. So I know sometimes, for members in the group, that they don't feel like they're having an impact, but they don't actually know a lot of the time the impact that they are having. Just because somebody doesn't like or love or comment or share or anything else, it does not mean that you're not having an impact. I mean, anyone that I speak to regularly knows that they firstly know my mind never stops. But then when I'm talking to them, I'm like, oh my goodness, I just saw this and I just saw that. And did you know this? And this person does this and this person does that. But I might not have had time to comment. So it really does make a very, very huge difference. So with that, I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to put the screen just back onto you, Carla, and you've got a PowerPoint presentation that you're going to share with us and you're going to go through. If anyone has any questions that's watching on the Facebook Live, just pop them down below, and then we'll make sure that we come over and we ask Carla those questions at the end. So your presentation is going to go for about 30 minutes. And do you want me just to remind you when 30 minutes is up, and then we'll do a Q&A?
Yeah, sure. So I do have quite a lot of information today, so I want to give you guys as much value as possible, but also try and not kind of overwhelm you. So if anybody has any questions after the session, please get in touch with myself or via Lisa to help guide through any more information that you need. And we also do have our online course, which will give you all of this information, but in a lot more depth as well. So I might drop the link to that, and I've got a special code just for today for your audience as well. So yeah, if you need a little bit more information, please get in touch with me and of any of the subjects, and we can delve into it a little bit more. Awesome.
Is your screen being shared, Carla?
Okay, can you see that? Oh,
yeah, great.
Oh, where did I go? Hang on, sorry. I'm a bit clunky with technology. Please bear with me, everyone. I'm a garden person, not an IT person. Okay, can everybody see that? No? Why does it keep doing that? Sorry, everyone. Okay, can you see that? Beautiful. All right. So today I'm doing a presentation on creating food security. So obviously, I think this is a really, really important part of, being kind of awake. I think it is taking the pressure off of our government system, let's call it, and creating a little bit of food independence as a community. And I think this is something that we need to move forward with, despite whatever state the world is in or is leading into. We really need to take control of this ourselves. We can't leave our government or organisations to take care of us in regards to this. We need to be empowered, and we need to stick together as community in order to be able to create food security. I don't feel like I need to go into much of the reasons why. I think we're all kind of on the same page as to some of the things that are happening in the world. So I'm going to skip over that section with the idea that most people in our community are already aware of like what's going on in the world, let's say. So we'll skip over that part there and move straight into some of the points. So getting the setup right is, I guess, the most important part of having success. I've got no way of seeing if you guys can still see me.
Carla, it's just gone back.
Oh, it's gone back. Okay, awesome. All right,
Yeah.
So let's just keep going through. So getting your soil right is the absolute most important step in success and having a successful garden. So a lot of the time I hear people say, oh, I've gone out and I've brought these seeds or these plants or yada, yada, yada. The most important thing that you need to focus on to get success is getting your soil right. So making sure that we're looking at strategies to enhance and look after our soil without having to depend on different organisations and major chains and shops like that and things like that is what we're really sort of focusing on. So first of all, getting the setup right, we need to look at our winter sun. Look at having wicking beds and shades for summer. So moving away as well from having to use a lot of scheme water and having to water your vegetable garden. It's really important that you've got the soil right. And I recommend using a wicking bed for that one, which we'll cover in one of the slides down the track in a little bit more detail. But you can also maximise your space by using companion planting. And this is really important as well. If you want to use less pesticides and things, then getting that companion planting and plant choice correct is really, really important as well. And we're all quite challenged in regards to the amount of space that we can use. So, most of us are living in an urban situation where we don't have, a lot of space. So using your space in a wise way by, using trellises or putting things up against the fences and pergolas and things like that is a really good way of maximising the space that you have. So thinking outside the box, not just having a planter sort of where you've got some space, but growing vertically and things like that, integrating into your space in smart ways so you can get things going kind of everywhere. And then food forests are another really good one. So if you are blessed with a little bit more space, consider companion planting in your food forest. So that's using a combination of large trees and other different types of plants to create an understory. So in sort of a couple of square meters, for example, we can either have a big fruit tree or we can have fruit trees with other shrubs and ground covers and vines and things like that, all growing in symbiosis with one another. And that means that we can grow a lot of food in a very, very, very small and compact space. So these are some of the kind of things that I recommend that you sort of look for, opening your eyes when you're looking around your own space. How can I use my space correctly? And how can I maximize my land in order to be able to grow an abundant amount of food? So there's some of my tips in getting this set up right and what to look for in your own garden. How are we going there, Lisa? No? Okay, that's okay. Don't have any columns or anything.
So you're going great. I had the live stream Facebook screen up, so I wasn't able to unmute to respond to you. It's fantastic. I'm taking notes.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, brilliant info.
All right. Well, I can't see if there's anyone in any comments or anything. So perhaps as I get to the end of the slide, Lisa, I'll take a moment to pause. And if you've got any feedback on the slide, before I move on to the next one?
Yeah, I would say people will just take notes, Carla, and then they can just ask at the end. I think that'll keep it a lot cleaner for us.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. I shall continue on then. All right, so let's have a chat about soil health. Now, this is really, really important, everyone. I think if you don't take nothing else away from today's session, then focusing on your soil health, then I've done the right thing. You know, I've gotten through to you. It's really, really important. It's the absolute apex of organic gardening. And if you don't want, you know, pesticides going onto your garden, if you don't want to be watering it all the time, if you don't want, you know, disease and things like that, you have to get the soil right. The soil is like our immune system, or our garden's immune system. We have to have it nice and healthy. We have to be feeding it with you know, lots of minerals and lots of really, really good things in order for it to be able to support our ecosystem, our garden's ecosystem. So therefore we need to focus on that. So rather than so much sort of focusing on where are we going to get plants, because that's actually a really, really easy thing, and we'll cover that in a session in a second as well. We need to be focusing on how do we get our soil healthy. And this can be a challenging thing if you're not bringing in any inputs from an external source. So I recommend everybody sort of start thinking now, how do I prep my soil, and how do I start setting up some of those ways to continue to keep my soil healthy if I don't have the reliance on shops and you know, the system itself. So my soil recipe for success, and I'll take a shot of this one because it's really, really important in our Perth soils that we're including each of these inputs. And the first one is, and probably the most important, is the Rock Dust Plus. So this is a combination of all your micronutrients, but it's also got things like your humus and clay and other sort of components that will turn your sand into something that's loamy and nice, or if you're up in the hills, it will turn your clay into something that's loamy and nice as well. So basically what you're looking to transform your garden into is something that's rich and loamy and dark. Your soil you need to be able to hold it, and it's dark and it's gripping onto water. If you pick it up and it's sort of clay and it just kind of makes a little clay ball, or you pick it up and it's sandy and it doesn't make a clay ball, neither of those situations are going to be viable for you to be able to grow food in. So you want to turn it into something in the middle, which is nice and black and you know, rich in compost and lots of worms and things like that in it. And you can do that by adding in your Rock Dust Plus. Lots of different manures. So if you've got access to, you know, chickens or sheep, horse manure is very high in nitrogen. It's not one of the best, but any manures that you can access are going to be really, really good for your garden. And compost is free food for your garden. So if you're not composting at home, I urge you all to get started on it right now. And we've got a slide about composting coming up, but it's really, really important. For a couple of different reasons. One, being it is obviously really good for your garden. Two, it helps to reduce your house's carbon emissions. So if you're thinking from an environmental standpoint, it's really beneficial. Yeah, the compost that you can purchase in the shop is no way near as good as compost that you can make at home. So I urge you all to give composting a bit of a go. And then last but not least in our soil recipe for success is mulch. Now, this is something that people really underestimate the value of. You absolutely must have mulch on your gardens, because if you do all of the top 3 steps and then leave that soil open to the elements, all of your microbes and all of your organisms are just going to fry up in the first hot day. So we really need to protect our soil structure, with a nice thick layer of mulch. That's really, really important. So where can we get some mulch from without relying on the system? You can purchase a mulcher. So they're relatively inexpensive, and then you can mulch down any of your tree bits. Straw and lupins, you can sort of grow them and then make your own mulches and things out of those as well. But just really sort of keeping a bit of a focus on there, maybe grab a couple of bags and put them sort of aside in the shed. So if you are in a situation where you can't go to the shops, you've at least got a few bags of lupin mulch there on storage, because it's a really, really important input. Okay, so just moving right along now. So that's soil health. It is really, really important, everyone. Just really focusing on how to turn your crappy soil into something that's beautiful and loamy. Okay, so gentle segue into wicking beds. So wicking beds are absolutely awesome. Our company actually specialises in wicking beds. So if you did want to take the DIY fuss out, please get in touch and we can help you set one up at your house. So basically they are a water-wise growing system. So it's a semi-contained system where it waters from the bottom of the garden bed, making it a much more efficient use of our water. It helps to regulate the temperature of the garden bed too. So over summer, they're quite a bit cooler than a conventional garden bed. And it encourages really deep root growth. So for example, if you've got some tomatoes growing in a wicking bed, their roots are going to be nice and long as they're heading down into the water reservoir. And in a conventional vegetable garden, they can tend to be quite shallow and lateral. So they can be sort of in this top 10 to 15 centimeters of the soil zone. So you can see when it's 40 degrees, which type of root system is going to be more effective. A long, deep root system, which is traveling into an area of water, is going to have a much higher success rate than one that's very shallow with lateral roots. So you can see then the system is grown in a way that requires a lot less energy, a lot less water, and is going to give you a lot more abundant crops. So getting that set up right is really, really important. If you don't want to be sort of out there all the time having to spray and having to do things, you need to make sure that that system is set up correctly by using wicking beds and then really, really, really high quality soil. That is how you get some really good results. Awesome. All right, so I'm just going to keep going through because I do have quite a bit of content, but if you need to ask any questions, feel free to stop me there, Lisa. Okay, so composting, let's cover this one quickly. This is amazing. So if you are not composting already, I urge you all to please get out there and do it today. It is really, really simple. You want a compost bay that comes into contact with your ground. So a lot of those kind of tumblers and things like that don't allow worms and microbes to come in and out from the soil. So those big black bins that you get, or even just any type of bin or container, and you just cut a hole in the bottom. It's totally fine. It doesn't have to be sort of a specific thing. You can, reuse something sustainably and create a compost bay. And then you want a similar ratio of your paper, your food scraps, your green waste, and your brown waste. So if you have anything in your compost that's like smelly, or it's not breaking down properly, or it doesn't quite look right, go back to those ratios and think, do I maybe need to add in a little bit more garden waste, or am I adding too much garden waste? Go back to that ratio, and that should often guide you as to how to correct any issues that you're having in your compost, okay? So, yeah, that's a really, really good thing that you can have for your vegetable garden. And you don't necessarily have to use the compost bins. You can also use like a big bay, or a biomass pile, even just creating a pile of sticks and garden waste in a neat space down the back of your garden will feed the microbes over the entire area. So that's also an effective way of composting. And if you don't have a formal compost, just start digging your scraps into the garden. All of those different worms and things are going to go there and eat them and, leave their deposits in the soil and help you to build up your soil structure. So as you can see in the middle photo of the slide, they're just putting those scraps straight into the soil, and that's a totally fine thing to do. You want to dig them down and then cover them with soil so rodents and other sort of animals are not attracted into your garden. But it's certainly a very, very fine practice and incredibly easy to do. So yeah, definitely give that one a little bit of go. So whether or not you have a formal setup or you're just digging your scraps into the garden, are both really, really good ways of doing composting at home. Okay, moving right along. So I've got a couple of little samples from my garden here. So got my lovely basket, and I think this is a really good one for anybody who's sort of doing a little bit of prepping. It's really, really important that we do prep with some seeds. And, did you know that over 90% of the seeds in the world are actually extinct? We often talk about animals being extinct, but over 90% of our seed varieties are actually extinct in the world. And you know that there is one particular company whose motto is to monopolize our food all over the whole entire world. And that is something that we absolutely do not want to happen. If that particular organization has monopolized our food security and our food chains, then we are all pretty stuffed. So it's up to each of us to sort of combat that by seed saving, seed sharing, and growing from seeds. It's a really, really important thing. So you're looking out for all your heirloom varieties and organic seed. That's really, really important. So seeds are one of those things that's often manipulated. So one of the most important things to look out for is this word open pollinating that you'll see in my slide there. And basically what that means is that bees can come along and pollinate it for us. Now, it seems a bit deceptive, but obviously a lot of other companies have made their seeds so they don't openly pollinate, which means that if you buy a seed packet from some particular company, you can't actually save those seeds and then regrow them generations down the track. So it's really, really important that we're purchasing organic and heirloom seeds and storing and saving those for our food security. This is the absolute most important thing. So how do we save seeds? Now, there's heaps of different ways that you can access seeds for free, because remember, we're using our resources, our money and our energy in building up our soil, okay, and building up our systems. And then we're going to get our seeds for free. So how do we do that? Well, one of the best ways that we can do that is by saving them from our garden. And I'm going to show you, this might be a little bit of a challenge because I can't see myself on here. But here is some rocket that's gone to seed. And you can see these sort of fatter seed pods developing. So the plant starts with the flower here, and then the flower falls off and the seed pods start to mature and develop. Now, unfortunately, they're not quite ready to harvest, but I've pulled them off today so you get an idea. You can see this one here, the seeds are actually starting to form in there. So this one is not too far away from being ready for us to be able to harvest. So we would just leave this on the plant for a couple more days until this seed pod here becomes papery and starts to automatically open itself. Then we can come along and save those seeds in there. And this plant here, one plant will produce quite a few hundred, if not up to 1,000 seeds. So you can see it's a very, very simple way of growing a lot of food. It's quite fantastic. So here we have an example of some marjoram, which is not quite there yet, but going to seed. So you can see the leaf happens here, and then this sort of weird looking stuff starts to happen at the top where it starts to like ball together. That's the seed pods developing. So if you see that starting to happen in your garden, it's a good idea to go, right, I'm going to save those seeds and observing the process as it happens. And as these seed pods dry out and start to open up, that's when we can come along and save them and then put them aside in our kit for food security. Now, how cool is this one? This is a really good example here. I've got some calendula, which is an absolutely beautiful companion plant that we plant. And you can see all the different stages of the plant's growth here. So you can see the beautiful flower, which has been opened and pollinated by some gorgeous bees, which are brought in by our borage and all the other plants that we plant specifically for the bees. And then you can see here, the seed pod is kind of green, but the petals have dried and fallen off. So that's kind of stage 2, if you will. And then you can see stage 3 here. See how it's really dry and papery and quite brown? And if I go like this, see how those seed pods are falling away naturally? That's exactly what I want. That means that they're ready for me to save. So I then just grab those couple of seeds. And how many do I have here? I've probably got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's probably about 10 in that one little flower. I'm not sure if you can see that too well. So I've just saved 10 plants of calendula from just one flower. So I can give some of those to my friends. I can give some of those to my neighbours. I can share them around. I can plant them in some spaces where some bees might be needed. And, you know, it's a very simplistic way of doing that. Now, another cool thing that we can do is save seeds from food that we eat. So here I have got a gorgeous Cape gooseberry or an Inca berry, which is a superfood. So if you're going out to the shop and you're buying, you know, Inca berries or something like that with your money, then I urge you to grow these gooseberries instead and to save your money for some really beautiful soil. And these are really simple. They're members of the Solanaceae family. So the seed is very, very viable. But if we open it up, we can see inside there are so many seeds. There's probably a couple of hundred seeds in here. Can you just, thank you, Karen. There's probably a couple of hundred seeds in here. And how do we save those ones? We wash them out. So we put them in like a strainer and wash off the flesh. and then you dry them out on a piece of paper towel, and then you store them from there. So that's how you would say from like tomato or pumpkin or eggplant or something like that you may have brought organically from the shop. So if you can see that there's so many little seeds in there, and each one of those is going to make an entire new plant. Isn't that
Carla,
cool?
Carla, I was just thinking, if you've got many more of these to share, did you want to stop your screen share so that we've got you on the full screen, or have you nearly done those?
Oh, you can't see me at all?
Oh yeah, we can see you. It's just that we can't see like the entirety of you.
Oh, okay.
As you're showing these plants, that would be amazing.
Okay then. Well, let me.
Either that or just do it at the end. Maybe show us the plants at the end so we can have you on full screen.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. Do I take off the screen share?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
leave it as oh yeah, have you taken the screen share off?
Okay, hello.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks. And then we get to see like the whole plants, the whole picture.
Okay, no problems. Okay, so moving right along. So we're going to move straight into how to make lots of homemade fertilizers and pest control. So it's important when we've got our setup, completed, we've got all our little things there. How do we then protect it from the elements and protect it from things? And there's lots of different ways that we can do that. But don't forget, if we've got really, really healthy, robust plants, pest and disease isn't going to be as much of an issue. So doing things like worm wee and worm farms, your compost, weed teas, manures from animals, comfrey teas, different ways that you can actually make your own fertilizers at home. And then for pest control, there are lots of different things that you can do organically, depending on what pest you're dealing with there. But using a companion planting technique, interplanting lots of different edible flowers and lots of different pungent herbs. So you can see the calendula is something that we use as a very common edible flower. So interplanting lots of those into your garden will help to reduce the need to bring in any other things. And pretty much your white oil that you can make yourself, I'll drop a link to the recipe in the comments as well for you all. But your white oil that you can make at home is a really, really good solution for just about everything in the garden. So you can make that one as well. And then last but not least, we also have quite a few edible weeds. So I'm just going to drop the screen share back on again. Okay, there we go. So lots of the weeds in your garden are actually edible. So things like your dandelions that grow in your grass, your chickweeds, you've got the sour grass, which is that one that we all ate when we were kids. Your prickly lettuce, which is actually a painkiller as well. Your sow thistles, puha, and things like that are actually gourmet prized foods all over the world. Purslane and rocket, which is the stuff that you buy at Coles and Woolies for $2 or $3 for a bag of it. Is most likely to be growing in your garden. So take a look around. Obviously, if you can't identify the plant, don't just go and eat it. Some of them can give you a little bit of an upset tummy. But if you can identify any of those, please feel free to eat them in your own garden. They are more nutritionally dense than most of your things that you can grow in your garden anyway, in your veggie patch. For example, your prickly lettuce, which is technically the weed cousin of lettuce that we're growing, is actually more mineral rich than the lettuce that we're growing in our veggie patches, which is hard to grow in our climate. So yeah, give the weed version of it a little bit of a go, because it's very simple to harvest and eat that one there. Okay, now last but not least, and then I'll hand it back over to Lisa and see if anybody has any questions. I'd like to just have a chat about the importance of sharing as a community. So this is really, really important for our food security. So obviously making sure that no major corporations are able to monopolize our food chains. And the way that we can do that is by becoming more of a community. So we're very lucky in our Awake community because we already have a really, really tight-knit community. So, we can share, different excess produce excess seeds. You know, I just collected all of these calendula seeds now. So if anybody wants some, please come and grab some. You know, getting to know your neighbors and swapping and sharing with them. And even when you're at your friend's house, you know, taking some cuttings of some things that you don't have in their garden. So, you know, seeing what herbs they have and taking some cuttings of those herbs, or, you know, seeing what seeds they've got and sharing is a really, really important way of, you know, staying true and continuing to, you know, make sure that we have that food security there. So those are definitely some really good ideas. Make sure that we are staying tight as a community, which we definitely are, but also just within your street, you know, there are some neighbours that are growing that you can swap and share. There are grow-free carts and other different types of communities that you can join to share excess produce. You can also put like your cuttings and things out there, and share and swap sort of that way. So that is my sort of recommendation to you all, to give that a little bit of a go. So that sort of wraps up my points for today. Obviously, I've sort of covered it all quite briefly, but I just sort of really want to reiterate some of those more important points for everybody, so you can feel like you're really moving forward into the future with confidence and feeling really empowered. So just making sure that we get that set up right is really, really important, because we don't want to, you know, spend a lot of our energy and then not have a successful crop and give up. So making sure that we set it up correctly, you know, having a look around your garden. How can I utilize my space? You know, getting in a wicking bed and some really, really high quality soil, and setting up those systems such as composting and making our own fertilizers to bring the nutrients back into the garden, and then setting up a bit of a community with the things that we're growing. So seed swapping and sharing, and excess crop, you know, swapping and sharing as well are my sort of recommendations on how we can improve and I guess secure our food security for the future. Okay, Lisa, I'm going to hand it back to you for a bit. Please let me know if anybody has any questions, and I'll drop a little bit of further reading down in the comments as well for everybody as well.
Fantastic. Geez, that was absolutely brilliant. If you wouldn't mind just stopping your screen share, which you're doing now, which is fantastic. I'll just change us back to gallery view. So I'll go through any of the Facebook questions that we have. Leanne's got a couple of questions. I'll let Leanne ask hers herself. So just let me scroll down on the Facebook. So towards the beginning, Lou Lockyer said you were doing a great job. So she's given you a beautiful affirmation there. She said, take a breath, you're doing a fantastic job. And Lou, again, has said she respects that you're coming from an organic perspective, but she's assuming you can follow this process with all vegetable herb seeds, organic or not. Is that correct?
It's actually not correct, because as I mentioned in there, the open pollinating factor, it's really, really important that our seeds are being chosen as open pollinating and organic. This is really, really important, because a lot of them are not open pollinating, which means that we can't regrow them. So for example, if you get a capsicum from Coles, it's not organic, but the seeds have actually been manipulated in a way that you can't regrow those seeds. So if you do by chance get a plant from the seeds from your capsicum, it's not going to be very high quality. The fruit is not going to be very good on it. It's been manipulated in a way that you can't regrow it from the seed. Otherwise, everyone would just go to Coles and buy a capsicum and then end up with like 20 plants. So it's quite, you know, it is, they have manipulated us again in this way.
Thank you so much for explaining that.
Mm-hmm.
What if the vegetables were organic?
Then yes, you can absolutely save them. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why it's really, really important to get them from organic fruit and vegetables or seeds.
Even if they're from like the supermarket and they say organic?
So usually, generally speaking, they are organic until they hit the shelves of Woolworths. So they can be certified organic by the grower. So yes, generally they would be quite safe. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I wanted to ask more about the putting the scraps in the garden. So I had put up a question saying, well, wouldn't that attract the rodents? And then after I put up the question, you actually covered that. So I'm curious to know two things. Firstly, how deep would you have to bury it so that it didn't attract the rodents? And also you referred to brown waste, and I'm curious to know exactly what you mean by that.
Awesome. Okay, very good. Thanks, Lisa. So I would go at least 30 centimeters down. So just one shovel head. It doesn't have to be overly deep. You don't need to go digging for a long time, but just sort of making sure one shovel head or so down would be sufficient. And in regards to what is brown waste, it is sort of anything that's carbon rich. So dried leaves, dried grasses, bits of bark and things like that. The brown, dried, sort of more crunchy style stuff from our garden is the input of brownness.
And once you embark on this, how long would it take from woe to go to have a garden that would be that you feel proud of?
Good question. Well, I mean, to answer the question, I guess briefly, if we were to say come in and set up one of our wicking bed gardens, obviously we get all of those kind of steps right. You would start harvesting in about 4 weeks. So you know, then you'd be able to go out and get lettuce, radish, and other type of things in about 1 month. And then you'd probably be up to 3 months before you're harvesting sort of vegetables and fruits, those kind of things.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to mute because I know Leanne had a couple of questions, and then when we come back, if we can just talk about what a community might look like with doing the seed stripping like you were talking.
I love that.
Okay, I have a lot. Okay, so firstly, how long does it take for the compost to break down when you have a bay?
So a variable question. It depends on how big your particles are. So if you are quite vigilant in chopping them up into small particles, it depends on how much sun and water your pile gets. It depends on what you put in there. So if you put a lot of manure and food scraps, it's going to decompose a lot quicker. So quite variable, but I would say anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And it's a good idea to get 2 or 3 bays or bins going at the same time. Then you've got number 1 here, takes 3 to 6 months. By then you're filling number 2 and this one's ready. So you've kind of always got them on a rotation that way.
Awesome. I normally bury my scraps.
Nice.
However, we have quenders or bandicoots, and they like to dig them up. It doesn't matter. So we've got to go actually a bit deeper when we bury. So there's that one. Also, I have a biosystem. So our water waste goes into a biosystem and then gets dispersed on a garden. Now, this is not, so it's above ground. The water's sprayed out, and it's not an edible garden because they don't. So they say that it's not good for the garden. If we did that and had wicking beds, would that be okay as a water source?
So look, I would say no, because, and the reason for that is when we deal with any potentially contaminated soils, we want to avoid things that are grown on the soil. So for example, you could definitely put that on fruit trees because any potential contaminants are filtered through the tree and then you produce fruit which does not come into contact with the soil per se. Whereas if you're growing something like a beetroot or like a lettuce, it's literally growing in the soil. So the contaminants could potentially be in the soil and on the plant. So if you are to use that type of system that could potentially be contaminated, or even if you've got soil that could potentially be contaminated, like maybe if you live really close to the city, you're worried about lead or other type of contaminants in the soil, grow fruit trees because they act as a filtration system and make sure that nothing that you're growing is kind of got the soil on it per se.
Okay, awesome. When we save our seeds, how long do the saved seeds and dried saved seeds last, and where do you store them?
Excellent question. Very good question. So as a rule of thumb, most seeds last about 2 years before they start to reduce viability. So what that means is if you've got 10 seeds, you would get about 70% of them being successful. After 2 years, that just starts to decline. So it doesn't mean that the seeds are necessarily, that you can't use them. It just means that their germination viability starts to reduce. So if you've got some that are like 10 years old, you might get sort of 20 or 30% success rate, but by all means, there's nothing wrong with those seeds at all. And the best way to save them is in a little glass jar with one of the silicone doodaddies from your vitamins, just to make sure there's no excess moisture, and then store them in a dark, cool place. So I keep mine in my sort of laundry cupboard in the house, my sort of craft pantry. I've got my seed box right down the bottom of my sort of craft box, if you will. So I don't leave them out in the shed because it's not quite as regulated out there. I leave them sort of inside where it's nice and cool and dark.
Awesome. Now there are different types of dandelion. There's those really tall, long, thin ones, and there's the broad ones.
Yep. So we've got a couple of different dandelions. We've actually got one called false dandelions, which is the more common ones here in Perth. They're all edible. Don't mistake them for cape weed because they're not edible. So again, you just want to look for your little dandelion, fairy puff thing that we blow into the wind. And if you've got any questions and you're not sure, send me a text message and I can help you determine if it is in fact a true or false dandelion or some cape weed.
Awesome. Okay, another question I've got, kikuyu grass. How do I keep it out of my garden beds?
Oh, my arch nemesis. So again, this is where the wicking beds come in handy, because we've got, not only drought type conditions here in Perth, but we've got tree roots and pooch grass being my arch nemesis. So it is guaranteed to come up into your vegetable garden. The second you start watering it, all the eucalypts in the area are going to come up into your veggie garden. It's going to be full of roots. Within 2 years. So to eliminate that, the wicking bed is the most fantastic solution to a lot of those issues that we face.
Okay.
Kikuyu in the rest of the garden. Yeah.
It's just hard work. Okay. And when you're first starting out, I've got some raised garden beds. Where's the best place to get soil if you're just doing raised garden beds rather than wicking beds?
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. The best place that we can get soil here in Perth is definitely Green Life. So shout out to Linda at Green Life Soil Co. I'm not an affiliate, but they're definitely one of our suppliers because they are amazing. They are the best place in Perth to get certified organic soils of a very high quality. And again, they're not cheap because they're really high quality. So you can definitely get cheaper, but remember, we want to be spending our investment on getting that soil right. So go to Green Life and get it from there.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I'm passing over to Tanya.
Thanks, Leanne.
Yeah, Tanya had some questions. Oh my goodness, Leanne, you'd be the perfect person to do the course, I think. All right, shoot, Tanya. You have to unmute first.
Mute.
Yeah,
okay. Right, now you can hear me. Okay. So you said looping or straw for mulch. Can you use cut grass instead? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Look, you can use cut grass as a type of mulch. It's very high in nitrogen. However, you want to be mindful, it's very often contaminated with a lot of seeds. So it would be my recommendation to put that into the compost bin and to turn it into compost. And if you have a hot compost bin, it's going to eliminate that issue for you.
Lovely, good. Thank you for that, because I've got all my veggies growing, but I didn't know about mulching, so that's great. The wicking beds, now, is that something that needs to go at the bottom, is it?
Yeah, so it is. If you've already got your veggie gardens, it would sort of mean emptying them out and creating the wicking system. So it's more of one of the things that we look at when we're setting up initially.
Okay, all right, that's a shame because I'm already set up and
nice
horrendous amounts of vegetables, but it was really good. Thank you for showing us the seeds, because I've got some of those seeds from the rocket exactly like you showed, so that was great. Thank you.
Excellent, thanks.
That's me.
Okay, thanks, Tanya.
I'm just seeing if there's any other questions on the Facebook Live. Paula Wickham said great information. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
So that's good. So have a lot of people watching this live. I'm going to pin this to the group, and I know that so many more people are going to get value out of it.
Awesome.
So what I would like for you to do is to pop up your contact screen again on your slide as we finish up, so that people can have your details there. And if you can let people know, please, what you would suggest to get together physically. Like as an example, do you run any meetup yourself where people can swap seeds and fruit and veggies and things?
Look, we do have a Facebook community, which is called the Gaia Community, unity in capital letters, because community is where we unite. So we do have a couple of members in there that swap things like seeds, but also different starters, like different cultures, like kombucha and sauerkraut and, kefir, different things like that in there as well. But I recommend jumping on the Inkaberry app or the Grow Free Carts if you did want to link up with those members of the community as well.
Okay, brilliant. And of course, anyone watching this that's a participant in the Worldwide Awake Business Network that actually wants to lead something like this, we're always looking for people to be able to step out into whatever their gift is, to be able to bring people together so that we can unite. Carla, if you can at some stage pop those links into the Facebook Live after you finish, that would be amazing, so that people have them for easy access. And then if anybody listening to this wants to start doing something themselves inside WABN, so it's an initiative of this group, then that would be fantastic as well. So please reach out. So thank you for letting us know what the physical aspects are. You also provide a lot of support online, and you were talking about that earlier. So you were going to put up a link so that people could go on to your online course. And it's, as I understand it, this course that you run is for evergreen, like you can go in at any time. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It teaches you how to set up your garden for year-wide success. So one common problem here in Perth is that we have a bit odd winter sun. So it teaches us to look at our winter sun so we can have success all year round. And in fact, even if you are, I know that our group and our community are WA based, but even if you're in another place in the world, the information will still be usable. We've got a couple of clients over east suffering from, a much colder climate than us, and they've been able to use the information to get success in their gardens as well.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, so we definitely started in Perth a couple of years ago, but the vision is to be worldwide.
Awesome.
So yeah, eventually people will be watching this content from other parts of the world as well. So I'm really glad that you touched on that. The investment, Carla, how much does it cost to actually do your course?
Yep, so the course is $199, and we've got the special sale for this group here, which I'll drop the code down in the comments for you guys to get 20% off. And it's a self-paced module style learning, so you can sort of do it over one weekend or do it over a couple of weeks if you like. And it does give you access to ask questions to myself in the online forum as well. So you do get sort of a bit of personalized support, implementing those different strategies in your own garden as well.
Okay, that's brilliant. And you basically would register, and then you've got that access. So you've kind of got your personal advisor as well, and you might choose to do it over a weekend and follow all that advice, or you might choose to just drop in and out as you're doing it over a year. Would that be correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Exactly. So self-paced, and there's a couple of little exercises in there. So each module has its own sort of hands-on exercise, if you will. So you'll complete the information and then sort of go out and, for example, the first one, sort of mapping the sun in your garden. So then you'll sort of go out and do the exercise, if you will, and then come back into the workshop.
And how many modules and how many hours roughly?
So there are 7 modules in total. And we did have a couple of people that finished it in just over a weekend. So yeah, if you were really sort of gung-ho and getting into it, one weekend would be sufficient, but we recommend over a couple of weeks because there are those sort of exercises, and to sort of pace yourself. We do walk through setting up a wicking bed, for example. So you might want to take your time on that and make sure you get all of those steps correct.
I love this. And also it's a great family activity as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
to be
definitely.
able to do that. That's fantastic. Leanne, just before we finish up, do you have anything final that you want to add or ask?
You must have heard me telepathically. Yes, I do. If we want to come out and have a look, Carla, is that a possibility?
So we don't have an open to the public shop, but if you'd like to come down and see us, please get in touch with me directly to book an appointment with myself or Karen, and we can take you through a walk through the nursery and show you, you know, what we're doing down here. But we do tend to service more at our clients' or businesses' homes or businesses' places of business. But yeah, we definitely do have quite a bit of good stuff down here at the shop if you would like to come and connect with us here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.
Tanya, any final questions or comments?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much. That was great. I'm going to look into companion plants as well, very much so. So that's been great amounts of information. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
All right, fantastic. And Lou was just about to ask for your website, but she can see now that she has that. So that's all good. So our timing is absolutely perfect. So just before we finish up, was there anything that you wanted to add, Carla?
No, just I guess just a call to action to everybody to please get in touch with me. You know, this is absolutely my soul's purpose. I'm very passionate about this. I believe the gardens are sort of my healing modality and what am I offering to the world. So I just want to make myself available to anybody in the community to help you on your growing journey. And please get in touch with me.